Hola, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, how are you all doing? I do hope you're all fine. Let's talk about Roof Piece. Roof Piece, yes, Roof Piece. Not One Piece, not One Piece, the one arc on the roof, but Roof Piece instead. Because Roof Piece has been absolutely fantastic. Wano for me has been absolutely fantastic. It's been brilliant. Quite frankly, it's been outstanding. But I was actually having this discussion on Discord. Well, not even a discussion. I mentioned that point on Discord. And I actually wanted to bring this up into like a actual discussion. And that is that with One Piece, there's such a divide at the moment. Yeah, Roof Piece just highlights that even more. But there is such a divide when it comes to One Piece, where some people absolutely love the recent arcs, like me, and you've got other people who absolutely hate the recent arcs, like other people. And I'm not saying that my thought, my opinion is more justified than anyone else's. Obviously, that's not what I'm here, but I just find it very interesting because I've obviously not made videos on One Piece in a long time at all, at all, right? But what I will say is that I've watched, for example, Asian guy OPTC, who used to make One Piece Treasure Cruise videos. He recently made a video of why he stopped doing One Piece Treasure Cruise videos, and his point was that he doesn't find Wano that interesting. One Piece used to be his favorite thing, and now he just doesn't really get, he doesn't really care about it anymore. And I was interesting. And then I go over to Discord. I lurk in a lot of One Piece Discord. I don't really type much because people in the One Piece Discord, they love to power scale too much, and for me that's the least interesting aspect of One Piece. If I wanted to power scaling, Toriko would be my favorite anime of all time, because I feel like that, well, my favorite manga of all time. It is quite high. I must admit, it's quite high. So I might sound contradictory here, but if it was just about fights and power scaling, Toriko is the best in that. I'm sorry, that's just a fact of life. There are not many things that are better. Or the recent Hajime no... Oh my goodness. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, but the recent Hajime no Ippo chapters are some of my favorites. I must admit. I might actually make a separate video right after this. I'm talking about that because those are some fine-ass chapters, alright? But look, fights in One Piece, power scaling in One Piece. I love this power system. I love the characters, and that's what I'm involved in. I love the characters so much. That to me, that's all that matters, if I'm being completely honest. But let's talk about Roof Piece, because that's the video. That's gonna be the title of this video, Roof Piece, right? Or something along those lines, right? Because ever since chapter 1000, when all the characters gathered on the roof of Onigashima, it's been straight fire. Even every time we've gone back down, it's been straight fire. This whole, I know people will say, well, Kid hasn't done anything, and Killer hasn't done anything. And with the recent chapter, it's well, Kid and Killer, who had a hard on for Kaido, are now suddenly focused on Big Mom. Why? And I feel like that all comes down to actually the chapter before this, which is the one where Zoro stopped the conquest of the sea, or whatever it was called. I forgot what the official name was for it, but I think it was Conquest of the Sea or Empress of the Sea or something like that. And I actually now that I think about it, how that was called the Conquest of the Sea, and then the following chapter was called Conquest Haki. I quite like that actually, how that, it's just the little things that tie in that sense. But I must admit, I think it was from that chapter where Zoro stopped the attack, and Kid, was Kid, I think that said it, was wow, thank you very much, Zoro. Just because you were able to hold the attack back for a second, we were able to get out of the way in time. And that really, when you think of Kid, you don't really think of him saying thank you, anything of those sorts. You think of him as a lot more a ruthless kind of person. You usually would have expected him to be who do you think you are? Blocking. I could have blocked that easily, in that kind of vein. But no, because during this fight, say what you want, these characters are progressing. Now, of course, with Law, for example, he's been progressing a lot more because, frankly, we've seen Law a lot more. He's been progressing a lot less in terms of his character. So I had to do that, the light saturation, or not saturation, but the white balance on and off, because that side for some reason was shimmering, flickering. It's not anymore. Haha, maybe that's better. I don't know, but you could a Kid, we didn't have as much character. He wasn't really used to the Straw Hats. It's kind of this lone wolf. We saw that in the Prisoner Mines where Luffy and Cole were yo, we can work together, and Kid was nah, that's not gonna happen. So just from that perspective, you can see that slowly his attitude is shifting from like this lone wolf, like all that matters is my crew, to now, okay, we are in this together. Alone we can't do this. We've seen that, so we're all gonna work together, and I quite like that. I think people have missed that point, if I'm being completely honest. But like Kid's attitude is definitely changing, and obviously that then reflects on Killer too. But even saying that, like Kid, you could say his attitude. You look at the original alliance between Kid, Apu, and Hawkins. Well, Kid, Killer, Apu, and Hawkins. Killer was the calm one. Killer was the one that analyzed the situation, was like, you know what, we need to work together. Whereas Kid was like, I'm going to be the lone wolf. So Killer, you could say, hasn't really changed in terms of his character, because he was always the one that would have gone with like a pacifist approach, like, okay, we're going to team up, we're going to do this together. Whereas Kid, that's not necessarily the case. You know, he would have been the lone wolf, and we can see that now he's slowly, I wouldn't say warming up, like he's not like warming up to Luffy and whatnot, but he's seen the kind of effort, and attitude that, you know, that Killer, that Zoro, that Law, and that Luffy have put in. You know, when he saw Luffy doing his Gear 4, going into Gear 4 in general, and then like going out of it, and he was very much impressed, like, you know, when Law said that, you know, it's kind of like a one and done kind of move, like he's gonna go into that state, and it comes with a lot of risk. And Kid was like, there's so many people with the name K, but like Kid was like, yo, wow, impressive. Okay, nice. So like you can definitely see how, like, from like the beginning of this fight, where like they were like, oh, the first person to dodge, you know, the first person to react to Kaido's attack is an idiot, or whatever it was, like, you know, it's from going from that to now this being a lot more teamwork. I quite like that, from a character that is that we perceive as like cold-hearted individual, to now find out, you know what, he's not that cold-hearted. He's actually like, once you get to know him, as typical with people, you know, once you get to know them, they turn out to be good people most of the time, not always, but you know, once you get to know them closer, they tend to be people that you can rely on, at least. All right, whether that's in a good or in a bad sense, but you get the drift I'm going here. Zoro used to be my favorite character. I think everyone knows that. Zoro used to be my favorite character in One Piece, pre-time skip. I feel like post-time skip, because what I like, maybe it's not so much because of post-time skip and pre-time skip, but maybe it's more so because I've grown up. As a kid, these characters that like would do everything and anything to succeed were the characters that I naturally gravitated towards, because that was just me, my attitude as a kid. I would sacrifice everything to succeed. And even recently as like 2 or 3 years ago, I would have like sacrificed everything. I would have been basically the Griffith. Like if I had a group that I would have to sacrifice for me to achieve my goal, I would have done that. No, I'm not going to mention from which show unless you don't know, so I don't spoil it in that manner, but yeah, that would have been me. You look at other characters from other shows, for example, that I very much love. Rock Lee, very much liked. Might Guy, I very much liked. In other shows, I'm going to say not really the same principle, because he's just a badass. There's nothing of that principle like Kenpachi, you know, with Bleach coming back in a big way recently. I don't know why that just popped into my head. Then you look at other shows, such as Code Geass with Lelouch at the end of the show. Similar principle, not the exact same principle, but similar principle. You look at something like Joe from Mashita no Joe, or Rikishi from Mashita no Joe. Characters that like are willing to give it their all, to, you know, sacrifice everything to achieve or to do what they set out to do. And that's kind of how it used to be. That's why I like gravitated so much towards Zoro. And maybe it's because I've grown older, or maybe it's because he hasn't really had the spotlight. I feel like that's been the case with like a lot of like the Straw Hats, if I'm being completely honest, since post-time skip. They have had spotlights, but not as much as they had in the pre-time skip, because in a pre-time skip it was a lot more, you know, it was a lot more centered around the Straw Hats, and now because the story has opened up so much, it's almost impossible in a way, because if you're gonna just focus on the Straw Hats, and a lot of the side characters, a lot of the other characters that are being introduced, that have been introduced, that will be introduced, are gonna have to be shafted, you know? So I get that. I get why, you know, the utmost focus can't be on the Straw Hats, but it has changed my outlook on the whole series. It's funny actually, like the less I like Zoro, the more I like Usopp. Maybe it's because I watched One Piece like 50 times, or maybe 100 times, or maybe 200 times by now, because I basically rewatch One Piece like 5 times a year, just because I watch like 5 new reactors each year at least. And then I watch it like 5 times myself as well, so 10 times a year, I guess. And then I read it like 5 or 6 times a year as well from the beginning. It's like, bro, how often am I gonna do that? But kind of ridiculous if you ask me. But hey, that's not the point here, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, I like Usopp a lot more than I did in the past. But Zoro has really impressed me. It's not so much the power, and it's not so much him fighting, but just him being in the show. He's impressed me, and obviously in the last chapter, with the Conqueror's Haki thing, look, I knew he had Conqueror's Haki. I ain't gonna lie, right? I knew he had Conqueror's Haki from, like, the time skip. The second I saw, the second we knew that Rayleigh, you know, we saw him have it, but, like, we didn't know back then. But, like, the second we actually knew, okay, Rayleigh, that's Conqueror's Haki, I was like, okay, Zoro's gonna get it. I think that's going to be the big distinction between like Luffy and Zoro. Luffy and Zoro to say Sanji. I know Sanji fanboys will hate me for that. I personally am not really one that really cares about all this fanboy war shit, because quite frankly, it's absolutely pointless. If I'm being completely honest, Zoro is stronger than Sanji, but Sanji can still hold his own. You know, that's just the way you should look at it, honestly. But yeah, for me, it was always that Zoro. The thing that really stood out for me, it was a filler scene in the anime, but like in Sabaody, like Zoro, he runs into like these bunch of dudes in Sabaody, and like he just intimidates them. Before we saw with Luffy used Haki once before then against Momotaro, whatever the bull was called that Duval had. And like Zoro just intimidates these guys, and we're like, whoa, is that the same thing that Luffy had? That Shanks had? You know, is that we didn't know back then, granted, but like, it was just a filler scene, granted. But like then for me that cemented it was in Punk Hazard against Monet, because intimidation is one facet of conquering someone, like reducing someone's spirit in that way. So like having just seen the intimidation that Zoro put on Monet, and obviously it was for a different factor. It wasn't so much like, oh, you know, this guy, his ambition is so great or anything of that sort, but it was more so like, whoa, this guy he's frightening, and Zoro's always been described as like this beast. So I feel like that to me really stood out, and I was like, okay, Oda is with that scene, Oda is hinting towards it. So that was always my impression. And I obviously got the confirmation. I'm like, okay, nice, we got it. I've always, funnily enough, when I was younger, like right after the time skip, my thoughts were always this, very simple thoughts, that like Luffy will have Conqueror's Armament and obviously Observation. Zoro will have Conqueror's Armament, Observation. Sanji will have Conqueror's Armament, Observation. Then you have like the secondary trio in Brook, Frankie, and Robin, who will have Armament and Observation, and then you've got like the weakling trio, who will have one each. You know, we saw with Usopp, he kind of developed Observation Haki. That never developed since the Dressrosa. But then you've got, I thought we'd see Chopper and Naomi, develop that too. Since then, honestly, my thought has shifted a little bit, where I'm like, they don't necessarily need Haki because there's so many things out there that can negate Devil Fruits. But like, just seeing how Haki is being used, how Haki is being used to improve, abilities, I will say that maybe it isn't necessary. Maybe it is necessary because, like, think about it. Like, you have someone, you look at the Big Mom Pirates, all of them almost had Haki. I think there was not many people of them that had Haki. So like, just from that perspective, I'm thinking like, yeah, like as the crew of like the future Pirate King, as the 5th Emperor of the Sea, I think you gotta get that. We've seen the progress that the likes of Zoro, with Enma and Sanji with the raid suit have made. You kind of gotta get that. Like you kind of gotta get that now, and I would actually very much like to see them develop it. All of them, because obviously the likes of Robin, they know what Haki is. Brook knows what Haki is. Frankie, has he outright mentioned Haki? I'm not sure. Like, Brook obviously mentioned Haki with in Wano. Robin mentioned it during Fishman Island. Frankie, look, they all know what it is just based on the fact that they've been around Luffy and they've fought against people that, either that had it or whatnot. You know, look at the likes of Nami, who fought against Big Mom and so on and so forth. But like, Jinbei throws kind of a wrench in my whole theory of like, oh, you know. But now actually, I actually think it might be more likely that like Zoro and Luffy will have conquerors, and all three. Sanji and Jinbei will have two. And then like you kind of go and mix and match with all of them. Like where like Brooke, Frankie, and Robin will have like one defined, and like one maybe just like halfway there, halfway here. And you've got like the weakling trio who will just have one. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I like the discussion about Haki because it's such a badly defined ability. I like it specifically because it's badly defined, and that's very telling that we're finding out more about it now. That really helps it being established as badly defined, because it just shows that like the characters, like besides like the top of the top or the top of the top, you know, the characters, even those are not very well versed in Hakiism, if that's the phrase, you know. So I don't know. I quite like that. The fact, you know, people say, well, we should have known that. We should have been talked about that. So, you know, this shouldn't have come this late into the game. You know, this shouldn't have been explained this late into the game. But I actually quite think it works very well, because the characters themselves, besides like, again, the top of the top, such as the likes of Kaido, such as the likes of Big Mom, and those would obviously know it the most, first of all, because they're Yonko, but also because they used to be in Rock's pirate group. And the key thing here is that in the Rock's pirate group, we've learned that these people used to fight amongst each other all the time. So from that, you can gather from that, you know, as they say, Haki blooms in the heat of battle. So like, if they would have been like fighting for you know, to the death against each other all the time, then they would have learned a lot about Haki, and that's I feel like it works very. And obviously, then they fought against the likes of Garp and Roja. So I think that works very, very well, if I'm being completely honest. The more ROOFPIECE goes on, the better Luffy gets, the more I think it's not going to end well. Because it's all going Luffy's way right now. It's going Luffy's way right now, in the sense that he learned Rio. Now he's learning how to infuse Conquerors. It almost feels like he's able to beat Kaido. I know he's not there quite yet, but it almost feels like he is able to beat Kaido. Almost. And that's exactly what I feel he'll fail. I don't know. Kaido, to me, this is a Luffy issue more than anything, right? This is a Luffy issue. This isn't a One Piece issue. Actually, it's a Luffy issue. You can't ever tell how strong an opponent is if they fight Luffy. It's all right. Let me explain that, because you know, and I know it doesn't make sense, and I keep stumbling over my words, but screw it. Luffy, defining how strong an opponent is through the eyes of Luffy is almost impossible, because Luffy tanks everything until he doesn't. You look at Katakuri. I think many people have many grievances with that fight. I don't per se, but there's one thing that you can admit that was shoddy. Luffy can take punishment for days, for weeks, right? And you're like, okay. So Katakuri, Luffy, how does that whole dynamic work? Because Katakuri was clearly superior, but Luffy could tank it all. And you could say, well, that's just his endurance and his stamina. But he was tanking everything. Like, he was tanking a hole in his stomach. He's like, all right, I'm Gucci. So, like, you're like, okay, that makes no sense. And you're like, well, maybe Katakuri just didn't hit hard enough. And then you go over to Kaido. Luffy versus Kaido, round 1. And Kaido one-shots Luffy. And you're like, okay. Maybe Katakuri really didn't hit that hard. And, you know, Kaido just hits that hard. And now we've got Kaido doing the exact same. It's been like a week in training, and like Luffy's been training he's been training his Haki, but he hasn't been training his endurance. He hasn't been training his stamina. You know, you could make the argument that, you know, with Luffy's training his Haki, that gives him a little bit of a greater protection. But he takes a full-on Ragnarok douche And he's up like 5 seconds later, like, yo, good, I'm Gucci, bro. Hey, okay, jolly ho ho. And like, bro, how? You got one shot by Thunder Bagua. Law gets hit by Thunder Bagua and he doesn't stay down. Luffy gets hit. Luffy, the character who just tanks everything, gets hit by one Thunder Bagua and is out. This is why Luffy, it makes it hard, not just because he's rubber. So you could make the argument, well, haki and a rubber club, rubber attack, yes, you know, it does affect him, but it doesn't negate his power. You know, that was very clearly defined, very clearly stated in Punk Hazard. Because I feel like a lot of people always get that wrong. They always think that, you know, haki negates a devil fruit. It doesn't. It doesn't. The only thing that actually negates a devil fruit is sea stone. Now, I'm not saying, this is just a generalization. It doesn't apply to every single devil fruit because we found out, which we already knew, granted, you know, from Punk Hazard, but we found out that Law, he can't use his devil fruit, at least in that regard, you know, to move Big Man or Kaido because their haki is just that strong. But in general, in Punk Hazard, when they go up against Caesar the first time, before they go up against Caesar actually, it was said that, I think it was actually Frankie that said it. I think it might have been Frankie that actually said that. So, who said that, like, Sea Prism Stone can't stop. It doesn't negate. You know, you're still Logia. You're still, sorry, if you're hit by Sea Prism Stone, you can't use your ability at all. It just completely shuts it off. But haki doesn't. So could you say that if Luffy's hit by, like, the club, then even if the attack is extremely powerful, if like Luffy's haki defense is that high up, that he's essentially essentially reduces it to being hit by a club. And as we all know, Luffy can't get hit by a club. Like if Luffy, all right, it's a bit difficult to define. Like the point I'm trying to get across. Like say you've got Kaido with his club, right? And you've got haki, whoosh, all right. Whether that's Amulet or whether that's Conquerors, all right? You got that. You got those two things, right? You get hit with that. Luffy gets clocked with that, all right? But say Luffy has haki defense. I'm already black, so just imagine that black skin is haki, right? In some form, whether that's Conquerors or Amulet, right? So like Luffy gets hit with that. And the haki on the maze on Kaido's club and the haki on Luffy's skin is the same, right? Just imagine like Luffy was that powerful, right? So like essentially it nullifies itself and then it just leaves it being a club hitting Luffy. And since a club can't hit Luffy, well, it can hit Luffy, we can't damage Luffy. Maybe that's why it gets up, and that's why that was what the haki training was there for. I just think, considering how much of a veteran Kaido is, that like, it doesn't actually matter. Like Luffy having that haki training shouldn't really matter that much, but it does. So I find it fascinating, more so fascinating than anything. But like, Luffy is almost always like, it's just very bad to judge because this guy can tank so much. Right, this guy can tank way too much. If I'm being completely honest. You look at the likes of Crocodile, right? Crocodile, one stab through the chest and Luffy was on the ground like, right? One time, like with a hook, right? Not even like a sword or anything. A hook that was like that that wide, right? So like, I could like if somebody impaled me with a hook. Yeah, I probably could last longer than Luffy after that, if I'm being completely honest, right? But like, then you go to Katakuri. Katakuri with his trident, the Mogura, just a hole. It's like, hello, I'm still Gucci. Like, okay, how does that make sense, Luffy? Explain to me, right? Explain that shit to me, but it doesn't make sense. In some regards, it doesn't make sense, but in other regards, I don't really care. Yeah, that's what it boils down to. It doesn't make sense, but I don't really care. Roof Piece has been fun because I like seeing these characters work together. Now, of course, we're switching to Luffy versus Kaido and potentially Kid and Killer versus Big Mom. Here's what I think will happen from here on out. I think Zoro will get healed by Mako. The Scabbards are the interesting part to me. Because the Scabbards, you'd think that they would go back to the roof. You'd think they go back there. That's where they're heading. They're going back to the roof and help and assisting Luffy. but I almost don't think so. Because like Luffy, with his statement in the last chapter, well, in this chapter, the current chapter, right? He said, "Tell everyone I'll take care of this." So to me, that means one-on-one, mano a mano, Aokiji versus Luffy, you know? I don't think the Scabbards will interfere just because Luffy made that declaration. So what is next for the Scabbards? They've been split up little by little here and there, as we've seen, you know, with Inu, with Ashura Joji, and with Raizo. Originally, I thought that we'll just have like Denjiro and Kanjuro head up, but I'm not even sure about that anymore. Because I thought like those are the original two, so they will assist Luffy, and everyone else will be occupied, you know, downstairs, I guess. But I'm not even sure what kind of matchups we'd get if they get split up. I don't know. There are so many factions. There are so many interesting, interesting moving parts that are happening that I'm like, ooh, I like the story. I don't think we're gonna finish in 2021. I think I've seen some people's review and some people's reactions say that one will probably end in 2021, or at least Roof Piece will end in 2021. And while I think we're getting very close now with with Luffy learning how to infuse and imbued Kongrasaki, just because of the threat of Big Mom, I can't see this end in 2021. Even if they keep Big Mom down and like Killer can like stall it for so long, I don't see how Roof Piece ends in 2021. If I'm being completely honest, we're halfway through the year, give or take, not quite, but like let's just imagine we're halfway through the year. Imagine it's June instead of March. Instead of April, right? 20 or let's say 20. So since we're in April, let's say 25 chapters left in this year. I'm calculating like with breaks, because usually there should be like about 30-ish weeks of this year left. There are 52 weeks in a year. 20, yeah, for let's say 30-ish weeks, right? Left of this year. With breaks, it's more like 23. So 23 chapters. By 10:32. Do I think this will be over? No. I think at 10:32 will be towards the end of it, but definitely not over. I think there is so much more from Kaido that we've not seen, because every time when he does something, he just gets like almost like the Big Mom factor, where like every time they do something, the opponents don't stay down, so it's almost like the threat is being diminished. Because like every time Kaido hits Luffy with an attack, or hits Zoro with an attack, or hits Kid with an attack, or hits Killer with an attack, or hits Law with an attack, it's like, oh no, and then just get right up the next chapter. It's like, oh, I'm good. Like, bro, how does that make sense? Make that make sense. But ladies and gentlemen, that's just my thoughts on the whole thing. I just wanted to talk about it a little bit, because I've obviously not talked about One Piece in a long time. So just my thoughts on Roof Piece. On Wano in general, in One Piece in general, on it all in general. That's just my thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you all think. I will be seeing all of you in the next one. My reaction for 10-11, yeah, we'll see it from there on out. Besides that though, I will see you all then. Have a nice day, everyone. Peace out and